Ever wondered what happens when a group of people decide they've had enough of their rulers? Well, grab your popcorn because you're about to find out. Today, we're going to delve into the intriguing tale of the Jewish revolts against Roman rule. Picture a world filled with discontent, where societal issues and religious zeal fuel a fire against tyranny. A world where corruption is rampant and messianic expectations run high. It's a complex, high-stakes tale that's sure to keep you on the edge of your seat. So buckle up because we're diving into a world of zeal, corruption and messianic expectations. Intrigued? You should be. Imagine it's around AD 66. You're living in a society boiling with discontent. The Roman Empire is in charge, and let's just say they're not exactly winning popularity contests. Taxation is high, and the Roman rulers are, well, a bit on the corrupt side. It's like living under the rule of a mob boss who's got a thing for togas and olive wreaths. Now imagine being part of the Jewish elite. You've got some power, some influence, but you're also collaborating with the Romans. The common folk, they're not too happy about that. It's like being a rock star who's sold out to the big bad record company. You've got your fans, sure, but there's also a whole lot of folks whispering sellout behind your back. And then there's the religious angle. The Jews are a fiercely religious bunch, and the Romans, well, they've got their own pantheon of gods. This isn't just a political issue, it's a spiritual one too. The devout are stirred up, zealous for their faith, and ready for a fight. On top of that, you've got societal issues. The gap between the haves and the have-nots is growing wider by the day. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and the middle class, they're getting squeezed. And let's not forget about the messianic expectations. There's a buzz in the air, a belief that a savior, a messiah, is coming. It's like waiting for the biggest blockbuster of the summer. Only this isn't about entertainment, it's about liberation, about deliverance. So you've got this perfect storm of discontent, corruption, religious fervor, societal inequality, and anticipation. It's a pressure cooker and the heat is being turned up, and just like a pressure cooker, something eventually had to give, and give it did, leading to the First Jewish Revolt. So the fuse is lit and the revolt explodes into life. What next? Well, let's dive into the meat of this tumultuous period. The First Jewish Revolt against Rome wasn't a walk in the park. It was a time marked by extreme violence, chaos and upheaval. Imagine the scene. The usual humdrum of life replaced by the clamour of rebellion, the air thick with tension and uncertainty. The Jews, fueled by a cocktail of discontent with Roman rule and taxation, dissatisfaction with their own elite's collaboration with the Romans, and a hefty dose of religious zeal, decided enough was enough. They rose, ready to shake off the shackles of the corrupt Roman procurators. It was a time of societal issues, and the air was ripe with messianic expectations. The revolt was not a quiet affair, far from it. It was a storm, a tempest of violence that swept across the land. The streets ran red as the Jews fought with a fervor born of desperation and hope. This was their chance, their moment to reclaim their autonomy, their freedom. Each clash, each engagement was a testament to their refusal to bow down, to accept the status quo. But it wasn't just about the battles, the physical confrontations. This revolt was a symbol, a beacon of resistance against oppression. It was a cry for change, a demand for respect and recognition. It was a declaration that they were not just subjects, but a people with their own beliefs, their own culture, their own identity. And so, the revolt raged on, a wildfire of defiance against the mighty Roman Empire. The Jews, against all odds, held their ground, refusing to be quelled, refusing to be silenced. They fought, not just for themselves, but for their future, for their children, for their very way of life. But as they say, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And boy did the Romans react. Enter stage right, Vespasian and Titus, Rome's dynamic duo, ready to quell the revolt. Now, when we think of these two, we might think of a Batman and Robin situation. But make no mistake, Vespasian and Titus were no comic book heroes. Three men with a reputation for not taking any flack, and they were about to bring the full might of the Roman Empire down on the Jewish rebels. Vespasian, the seasoned general, was named by the Roman Emperor Nero to suppress the revolt. He brought with him his son Titus, who would later become a famous emperor himself. Together they marched on Jerusalem with a force of 60,000 men. That's right, 60,000. Talk about bringing a sledgehammer to crack a nut. But the Jewish rebels weren't going down without a fight. They'd fortified the city of Jerusalem and were ready for a siege. And so the Roman juggernaut met the Jewish David in a clash of epic proportions. The Romans, however, were not to be deterred. They laid siege to the city, cutting off supplies and slowly strangling the life out of the rebels. And when the city finally fell, it was brutal. The Romans showed no mercy, slaughtering thousands and enslaving the survivors. The Jewish state, which had stood for centuries, was no more. But it wasn't just about the military victory for Rome. This was also a political statement. The Romans were sending a message to the rest of their empire. Revolt against us, and this is what happens. It was a show of power, a demonstration of their might and their willingness to use it. And just like that, the revolt was over. But the repercussions, they were just beginning. Okay, so the dust has settled, the Romans are back in control, but what does it all mean? Now that's the million denarius question, isn't it? The First Jewish Revolt against Rome, a monumental event that rocked the first century world, wasn't just a flash in the pan. It had long-lasting impacts that continue to echo down the corridors of history. Let's talk about the Jews first. The revolt was a defining moment in Jewish history. It led to the destruction of the Second Temple and the dispersal of Jews across the Roman Empire and beyond. The impact was so profound that it reshaped Jewish identity and culture, leading to new forms of religious expression and community structure. It was a time of transformation and adaptation, a time when Judaism began to evolve into what we recognize today. But the ripple effects of the revolt didn't stop at the Jewish community. It also had a profound influence on the early development of Christianity. The chaos and turmoil of the revolt provided a backdrop against which early Christian communities had to navigate. It influenced the way these communities understood themselves and their relationship to the world around them. And then there are the New Testament texts. These sacred scriptures of Christianity didn't just appear out of thin air. They were shaped by the historical context in which they were written. The destruction of the temple and the trauma of the revolt left a deep imprint on these texts. They bear the marks of a community wrestling with profound questions about suffering, hope, and the nature of God's relationship with humanity. So, there you have it, the story of a revolt that changed the course of history. But hey, don't take my word for it, take Josephus's. Just make sure you scrutinize it for potential biases. After all, history isn't just about what happened, it's about how we tell the story. And sometimes, the most interesting stories are the ones that are hidden between the lines. Whew, what a wild ride, huh? But let's see if you've been paying attention. We journeyed from the sparks of the First Jewish Revolt, fueled by a spicy mix of Roman rule, taxation, and a sprinkle of religious zeal. Then we dove headfirst into the ensuing chaos, a whirlwind of societal issues and messianic expectations. And oh boy, did the Romans clap back. Vespasian and Titus weren't playing around. The ripple effects still felt today, shaping early Christianity and New Testament texts. And there you have it, folks. The Jewish revolts against Roman rule, a tale of rebellion, retaliation, and a whole lot of drama. Until next time, stay curious, stay witty, and remember, history is a lot more